It begins with a lot of commotion out of a house, the media storming around asking questions, where it is shown that a girl is missing. We later find out that she has been killed. A neighborhood kid found the body and was being tormented by the media as he was taken into custody. Patrick Jane, who is the mentalist, is a consultant to the CBI. He is keenly observing everything on the scene. The father then makes a statement to the press thanking the law enforcement for their support and asking for privacy. Patrick enters the house and casually goes to the kitchen to make himself a cup of tea and get something to eat, not caring about the commotion outside, but still observing and looking at some photos in the house. The mother of the victim enters the room and asks Patrick who he is. He reassures her and tells her he's here to help and asks if she'd like some tea. She obliges. They sit down and she tells him that he can't help her and asks what does he even know. And that's when things start to get interesting. Patrick begins to read out some parts of her life like a book as though he were present in it. He states that she only pretends to like skiing. She wanted to go to India when she was younger, that she has trouble sleeping, and her favorite color is blue. How did he know that? Astonished at his accuracy and details, she asks him if he's a psychic. No, just paying attention, he replies. He then reveals that he previously used to make a living pretending to be a psychic. He then goes on to describe her husband, saying, "He seems like a warm, loving, generous man, little selfish and controlling, but a decent man." He then fires his question out of nowhere, asking her why does she suspect that her husband killed their daughter. She panics and denies it, blaming the neighborhood kid who was taken into custody. He continues to question her, asking why does she think the police is wrong. She begins to open up and says that last year her daughter and husband were very strange with each other, and none of them admitted that something was wrong. Once her daughter even tried to tell her something. Patrick, without any hesitation, asks her if she asked her husband if he killed their daughter, as most wives can tell when their husbands are lying. She asks Patrick if he thinks so. He says he trusts a mother's instinct. Her husband enters the room searching for her and asks Patrick who he is. He says he is with the police and asks the most shocking question again without any sort of warning to the husband, that if he killed his daughter. Enraged at the question, he denies it, but his wife realizes he's lying. Sad and disgusted, she walks away. Patrick provokes him by saying an innocent man would have punched him. There's a sound of the pistol reloading across the room. And boom. She shoots him, twice. The CBI, that is Patrick's team, and police rush to the scene and find her husband dead. 2 weeks pass, and there's another case, but Patrick arrives separately, and not with his CBI crew as he's on suspension. We can guess why. Lisbon, the boss of the unit which Patrick is a consultant to, asks him how did he get to know about this case. She asked him if Cho told him about it. Of course, Cho told me. It's a Red John case. You can't keep me out of this, said Patrick. Red John is a serial killer. You will learn about his link with Patrick soon. She tells Patrick that these are the consequences to getting a man killed. A man that murdered his daughter cause she wouldn't have sex with him anymore. Patrick asked her. He pleads with Lisbon to be reasonable, as Red John's his case. Rules are rules, says Lisbon as she asks a cop stationed outside the crime scene not to let him in. In minutes her boss calls her and we see Patrick in the room with them. What an overpass. He apologizes for going over her head, saying he'll redeem himself. The unit is being briefed about the death of a man and a woman whose bodies were found by her husband, a pro golfer, and his brother. The man killed with her was in fact her family doctor's associate. The family doctor was present on the scene to identify the bodies. The CBI goes to meet the doctor. Lisbon asks him about his connection to the victims. The doctor tells them that he works with the man who lost his life, and the woman and her family were longtime clients of their practice. The doctor then asks the CBI how did this happen to them. Rigsby from Lisbon's unit says that it was probably done by Red John. The doctor asks them who is Red John, and Lisbon interrupts saying they are still investigating and they will stay in contact. Patrick observes the crime scene, goes to the room the woman and the man were murdered, looks around and at some photos. He sees the Red John's mark on the wall, which takes him back to his past when he used to pretend to be a psychic and was at an interview doing the same. There he was talking about helping the police to catch a serious serial killer, Red John. Back at the crime scene, the unit discusses the murder, and Patrick says this is not Red John, and leaves the scene stating that they don't need him anymore. The team starts investigating the case. On watching some tapes they realize Patrick was right, as it does not follow Red John's pattern. So Lisbon calls him to tell him that he was right and indirectly asks him to come back because he's useful to the team. But guess what? He's there already. Lisbon and Jane go to meet the doctor. The doctor begins to explain about his practice. The doctor's clinic is filled with African artifacts. On noticing that, Patrick asks the doctor what's the African connection about. The doctor tells him that half of their profits go to building stuff and basic health clinics in poor regions of Africa to help save lives there. Then they begin to talk about the victim. He tells them that she was perfectly healthy, just that she asked to secretly send her a year's supply of birth control pills, which was surprising as her husband had a vasectomy. Patrick asked the doctor if his associate kept a diary. He said no. When he's leaving, Patrick asks the doctor for some sleeping pills. Doctor asks him to come for consultation, but he says he wants them now. The doctor refuses, saying he needs to ask a few questions before he can do so. Later that night, Patrick gets a letter in his room from Red John, teasing him. As soon as he reads it, he opens the door and tries to chase the person who left it, but he fails, and the person escapes. Patrick stays up all night writing a diary. Tensed on seeing this, Lisbon books an appointment for Patrick with the doctor. The next day they find a hair on the letter Patrick received. It is the golfer's brother's hair. He's called in for questioning and says someone is framing him, and that he and the woman were lovers. The pro golfer arrives there too, and states the CIA is attacking him and his family. But Cho tells him about the evidence and the truth about his wife's and brother's affair, and he's furious, and almost whacks his brother, who was being moved to another room in front of him. Patrick visits the doctor's clinic. The doctor asks him what keeps him up at night. This takes him back to his interview where he's talking about Red John, calling him tormented and lonely. And after that interview, he returns home to a note on his bedroom door. A note from Red John stating he didn't like being slandered in public by a fraud. And if he were a real psychic, he'd not need to open the door to see what he's done to his wife and kid. Patrick opens the door, and he sees Red John's sign on the wall, and the agonizing sight of his dead family. Coming back to the doctor's appointment, he lies to the doctor, and the doctor realizes it but gives him a prescription. As they are walking out, Patrick reminds the doctor that he had previously asked him if his associate kept a diary, but Patrick said that the doctor said that he did, but the doctor corrects him, telling him he didn't say that his associate kept a diary. Patrick laughed it off, saying probably someone else told him so, but he's a 100% sure someone did tell him that the victim kept a diary. Then the doctor asks him why does it matter if he kept a diary. Then Patrick tells him he'll be sending a team to search the victim's office and locate his diary the next day. The doctor tells him that they've already searched his office. To that, Patrick tells him that they never do it thoroughly the first time. Patrick then thanks him and departs. The doctor rushes to his colleague's room in search of the diary. And guess who gets there? Patrick. Giving an excuse that he left his phone at the clinic, Patrick asked the doctor why was he in his associate's office. The doctor said that he was tempted to find out more, so he got to looking for the diary. Patrick said he'll join the lookout too. Patrick finds the diary. The doctor then takes him to his office, reminding him to collect the phone he had left. As Patrick is leaving, the doctor pulls the gun on him. He takes the diary, reads it, and realizes it was a trap. As it was the diary Patrick had written himself staying up all night before, and on a page he'd ask the reader to confess. The doctor asks Patrick how'd he guess it was him. Patrick explains that the doctor could easily get the brother's hair, and he'd known that the doctor knew about Red John as he had books talking about the serial killer in his clinic. Patrick asked him why he did it. He said his colleague was going to expose him for theft. Patrick then asks him why did he kill the wife. As a distraction, he said. Holding the gun, he draws near. Patrick tells him he's already taken out the bullets, or else why would he plan this? Patrick throws things at him to distract him, and runs. At the building exit, Rigsby stops the doctor, as he chases after Patrick, and takes him under arrest. Next day, everyone is angry at Patrick for doing that. But he makes Lisbon laugh by making a cute frog for her. But Patrick, after all, returns to his home to sleep under the Red John mark in his bedroom, to constantly remind himself of the horror and pain. This was just the first episode of The Mentalist. There is so much more. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you did. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified with more cool recaps. And do let me know if you watch the other episodes. Bye.